the Soccer Podcast from dailyfantasylobby.com.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Soccer Podcast from dailyfantasylobby.com. I'm Christy. I'm going to be presenting these podcasts, and today we have David, who is the CEO slash owner slash general main man of Daily Fantasy Lobby.
Thanks, Christy. Thanks for having me along here to my own office.
It's an absolute pleasure. So we're going to kick off proceedings by talking about the injuries, suspensions, the selection issues that surround picking your lineups in DraftKings and in Mondogoal's daily fantasy soccer events. So, as if to sort of underline the importance of checking up, doing your homework, checking who's injured, checking who's suspended, I had a pretty embarrassing revelation this morning when I found out one of my own picks for the weekend is in fact suspended.
Well, absolutely. I think we call it the Alan Hutton fallacy. He isn't actually available this weekend, as a real shame for you. But actually, it was there was a couple of mistakes because you also picked some.
I picked Yannick Bolasie for my DraftKings team. For my DraftKings team. Yannick Bolasie, as you may know, the Crystal Palace wide man who has been on fire recently. He's been credited with being one of the major players behind Palace's recent revival. And,
well, you know, the 12:45 early kickoff game isn't in DraftKings because most of you guys in the States will be asleep. So yes, we're looking for a replacement.
It's kind of embarrassing because I smugly picked my team and then thought this team is so good, I'm going to select it for DraftKings and for Mondogoal. As it turns out, you need a completely different, unique selection process to apply to both sites. So, as you can see on DraftKings, if you pick a soccer event, then you're selecting a team of 8. In fact, I'm gonna show you my team of 8 here on DraftKings. Whereas if you go onto Mondogoal, which is the other major soccer site, you've got a team of 11. So enormous differences there between the two. Now, David, if you wouldn't mind just talking us through, first of all, as we have Mondogoal up on the screen, if you wouldn't mind just talking through your first 11.
Okay. Well, you know, it's important to know what the scoring systems are different in Mondogoal and DraftKings. With Mondogoal, I like to go for people who are likely to fire in the crosses and really people who are likely to score goals. It sounds very obvious, but you're not going to win points just by having people who are passing it squarely along the pitch, but really needing penetrators in this instance. I've gone for, from the back, I've gone for the Man City keeper Joe Hart. They're playing Burnley. I don't really like any of the fixtures this week, to be honest. I think it's quite a hard slate. I've gone for Joe Hart. I think he's got a likely chance of keeping a clean sheet. Man City are reasonably rested. They didn't play Champions League midweek. Burnley, Danny Ings is always a threat, but you know, I'm going to just throw it down there and say, you know, I had a bit of cash left when I came to pick the goalkeeper position, and Joe Hart was the guy that got my money.
That's interesting. Why is it that you selected the goalkeeper last?
I'm not really sure. I think the way I selected my team, I tried to pick the cheapest players first.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to dig out all the value.
Interesting.
Because you know, if I had some money left over, then I could go and pick some guys that I think are sort of pretty high priced, but you know, they're likely to have a decent points return as well.
Sure.
Further up the pitch. So defence. I mean, who did you pick in defence?
Well, for my defence, I've got Toby Alderweireld from Southampton. Very solid guy, makes very few mistakes. Now, I had the aforementioned Alan Hutton, who I have since switched out and brought in Andy Robertson from Hull. Basically, I need one average Scottish fullback in my team at any given moment. And if I can't have Hutton, then I'll go for Diet Hutton.
Well, I need to pick you up on that one because I think he's a bit better than that. Andy Robertson's a guy that I actually watched play. His first club was only 5 miles from my house. I used to go and watch him quite a lot. He's a marauding fullback. I mean, this guy is a Gareth Bale. He's really a midfielder. He's possibly even a winger. They had him playing left back. And he's playing. Hull have changed the formation back to a 3-5-2. He'll be playing the left side of the 5 in midfield. I think you're getting midfielder value for a guy that you're sticking in the defensive lineup. So you could be pretty happy with that sub.
I love it. There's definitely some selection, some value to be found there in selecting the attacking fullbacks who you feel are actually going to be playing more as wingers than as traditional fullbacks.
Well, definitely, and I think early in the season we saw it with Leighton Baines being one of the highest priced players across both DraftKings and Mondogoal. Obviously, he lost a bit of form, but that in essence is what we're looking for. Actually, I watched the Everton game last night against Kiev, and whilst I think Everton are a bit of a poor team, I noticed the young left back. He looked capable.
Sure. Garnett, was it?
It
Garnett?
could have been. It could have been. I think he might be one to watch.
Yeah. He looked like a young Leighton Baines.
He looks exactly like.
Not a bad role model to have. So I've also gone for Per Mertesacker and Vincent Kompany. Now, the reason I've gone for these guys, both of whom have been in the headlines a lot recently, their alleged lack of form has seen them both allegedly dropped. Now, I think it's squad rotation. I don't think it's dropping. I think if you've got Vincent Kompany and you've got a big game, you play him.
Okay.
Every game for Man City right now is big because they're 5 points behind Chelsea.
Okay.
They need their captain performing. I think he'll play and I think he'll perform. Per Mertesacker, for all that he was disastrous against Monaco in Europe, he's actually an incredibly high average point scorer across both DraftKings and Mondogoal. The guy is 6'13". He's strong as an ox, and Arsenal don't concede many goals. Now he almost has this reputation, the BFG, as being sort of an ungainly centre back, but he's got 100 odd caps for Germany. He's got a World Cup winners medal. He's a class act. So I've gone with Mertesacker, and I recommend that you do as well if you can pick him up on the cheap like I did.
Okay, well that's quite interesting. Obviously Arsenal are playing a depleted West Ham this weekend. I'm not even sure West Ham have got any strikers.
No.
Caro, I believe, is injured. Valencia cut his toe on a broken teacup this week. Sacco, I suppose, will play. But I think it might be backs to the walls for West Ham. I can see, Allardyce is that guy for me. I think he goes in there and he just parks 4 buses for me there. So you're probably right. Arsenal probably will keep a clean sheet. Actually, the goal expectancy in that game is the highest of any fixture.
It's incredible, isn't it? Very surprising.
Yeah, they're expecting 3.5 goals in that game, which is I think they're all going to have to come from Arsenal. Put it that way.
Both teams. It's kind of weird because West Ham are not in the best form, but they simultaneously, if this doesn't sound too contradictory, they simultaneously look very good. They've not been getting the rub of the green. They're playing good football. They've got very good players. Allardyce has signed incredibly well over the last year or so. They're losing narrowly. They're not getting outplayed. My prediction would be a narrow Arsenal victory.
Well, they've always had him as a money ball, haven't they? Allardyce was one of the first for analytics, allegedly. And I would agree that West Ham, they do look good sometimes. I think part of that is Upton Park is a good looking ground to watch football on TV at. They look like they press the ball, they look like they get it up the park, and the crowd are so close to the pitch. It just looks and feels atmospheric. Good luck with that. Good luck with him.
Well, let's move into the midfield then, because your other 2 picks are basically self-explanatory. Cahill, and obviously Steady Eddie at the back, and Paul Konchesky at Leicester. Leicester have what rates to be a low-scoring game against Hull. Konchesky's obviously attacking fullback, so you think that they're going to stick a lot of balls into the box.
I think I might get a bit of double jackpot there with Andy Robertson and Konchesky. I think we might pick up some nice points for crossing, etc. But we might also get a 0-0, so we'll get bonus points on both sides for keeping clean sheets. So the lineup I've really picked here is a sort of lineup that you would play in a big sort of GPP, a large player event, and you're looking for, you're looking to hit the stars.
Let's take a second to talk about that. So Tell us about the structure of GPP events and why that should factor into your selection.
Okay. It's a large field event. In terms of Mondogoal, I think some of their GPPs might have 500 players in them. There's no point picking a steady conservative team that really won't get you anywhere. You don't get any prizes. The way the prize structure is as well is that it's weighted for the people coming in the top sort of 20-25 percentile.
Sure.
So there's no real reason to go for safety there. I always try and pick a team that can explode and go through a ceiling. The other style of game obviously is a cash game, so for example it might just be me versus you. Well, let's go for probably a nice steady team there and hope you have a disaster. Maybe pick a couple of guys that aren't playing.
And of course over the long run in the cash games you're trying to grind out a small edge. You're trying to win 6 out of 10 of these head-to-head events, whereas with the big field GPPs it's almost like one first place or high finish will account for so many small cashes that it's not worth playing it safe.
Yeah, exactly. So let's jump into midfield.
Alright, let's hear it. Let's starting with you. Across the top, as you can see, Charlie Adam, Wilfried Zaha, Philip Coutinho, David Silva. Let's hear first of all your reason for Charlie Adam, a guy who makes me feel very good about my dentist.
I'm not sure mobile could ever be used to describe Charlie Adam. He had one particularly sad moment playing for Scotland a few years back against Gareth Bale that it gives me nightmares, and I've no idea what it does to him.
In his defence, many people have been made to look a bit stupid by Gareth Bale.
Absolutely. Charlie Adam's a player that when he's interested, you have to be with.
Yeah.
If he's not interested, avoid him like the plague. And everything from recent weeks is showing you that he is interested. I think he's interested in trying to get back into the Scottish national squad as well. I think
he's a long way out of the reckoning right now.
He's a long way out of the reckoning. I think he's maybe spoken to Gordon Strachan, the national manager, about that, and I think he's maybe been given a little bit of encouragement that said, come on, put in some performances and you can get there.
Sure.
He's playing a nice central role. He's on the ball all the time. He's very forward thinking. I think he's a great guy for some assists. He'll shoot from anywhere. Again, going back to that sort of GPP strategy, I really like him in there. And I'm going to jump forward to the strikers because I've paired him up with Peter Crouch, and you've got a guy, Charlie Adam, with a left foot like a wand, and you've got the big giant up front. I wouldn't mind thinking that 1 or 2 times this season they might just connect.
And they're playing against West Brom, if I recall correctly.
They are.
And West Brom were made to look very, very ordinary at the back by Villa in the double header over the last week or so, and that's rare for a Tony Pulis team.
Absolutely, and I think you'll look at some of the impact Benteke had, who I think might be injured now, but in that game, and I think they'll look, Stoke will look to that and look to the sort of Peter Crouch, Charlie Adam combination to do that. I mean, Villa are so narrow in the way they play.
Yeah.
4 central midfielders, play across the middle of the pitch, and in fact, I've chosen a Sunderland player as well to go into midfield on the basis of that, not in the Mondogoal lineup, but in my DraftKings lineup. I don't know if you can flick over to see that.
I sure can.
I've actually gone for Seb Larsson.
Very much the same sort of concept. He releases the ball early and directly.
Absolutely, and I think a way to get in behind a Tony Pulis team. Sorry, not a Tony Pulis team. Behind Aston Villa will be to sort of cross it early from the wide positions, and possibly he's always good from free kicks as well, round the box, very very deadly from sort of 25 yards in. So
he's a very good player as Larsson, but he's the sort of guy that games can pass him by. You'll often only hear a commentator only mention him when there's a set piece.
I know, and I'll take that chance. And at that price point, well, I managed to fit him into that particular lineup, and we'll sink or swim with it.
Alright, I like it. Now going back to our Mondogoal picks, you've gone with 2 Arsenal strikers, so you're basically banking on them triumphing over West Ham as discussed earlier.
Yeah, I just don't think West Ham will keep them out. I think Arsenal are one of the form teams in the league for me just now. The performance they put in on Monday against Man United, okay, a poor Man United, but it was a good performance.
Still a tough game by any standards.
Yeah, and I think any time in that lineup you get a chance to put Sanchez and Giroud into it, I think you have to take it.
Bit of a gamble maybe, because you've got Giroud ahead of Welbeck. Do you think that it'll be Giroud they go with for that physical presence?
I really think it will be. I think Welbeck got a charity nomination in terms of the lineup going back to his old club, and obviously it did pay off. But I still, you might even see Giroud and Welbeck playing, but I think you'll definitely see Giroud play. Hopefully a big performance from Sanchez. I see you've got Cazorla in midfield as well.
As far as I'm concerned, in 2015 he's been the standout player in the league. I think he's been absolutely magnificent. I think he's a little bit of hyperbole here, because he's not single-handedly dragged Arsenal through some tough fixtures, but he has been in a very good team, he's been the standout. And
Cazorla, that's an important point. How are we pronouncing names? Because we're not really from Spain. So.
Because me hablo español, I'm going to pronounce it Cazorla. Okay. Being a Glaswegian, can...
He'd be Santi Cazorla.
Yeah.
Cazorla. Yeah. Cazorla.
And that's you putting on your posh accent as well. So, my take on it is, Santi Cazorla is the standout in a very good team. And I've coupled him with Alexis Sanchez up front, because against a team like West Ham, who press, who are kind of physical, you find gaps in behind, and these are the two. They're somewhere between playmaker and goal threat. Both of them are.
Do you think they would be the two most intelligent players in the Arsenal team?
I think they are the two most intelligent players in what is quite an intelligent Arsenal team. Maybe you could make a case for Ozil. Ozil's an outstanding player, no question, but if you can pick up Cazorla for roughly the same price, and you can in both DraftKings and Mondogoal, then I think it's a no-brainer right now. Go with Cazorla. His average points per game is higher, and his trajectory is better. He is on fire at the moment. And if he doesn't quite pull it off, I've gone with David Silva, a very similar type of player. Silva's a bit more of a goal threat for Man City. They're playing Burnley, so you would anticipate, I might be wrong, but you would expect them to have a few more chances. And simply, he just never dips. His form is consistently 8 out of 10 every single game. Magnificent player.
I think you're paying for that though, aren't you? I mean, he's 14.7 on Mondogoal.
Yeah. It's enormous bucks.
8,700 on DraftKings. I think I love him. Philip Coutinho.
Yeah.
I'm actually silent because I'm so happy when I think about him. But he's almost 3,000 cheaper on DraftKings than Silva is. And again, he's 1.6 cheaper on Mondogoal.
And his form has been unbelievable recently.
What's not to like?
No, I agree. Liverpool have Swansea, who are in decent form. Man City have Burnley. I'm gambling somewhat on the fact that Silva will create more chances. That said, you've coupled them together. You think that that's just a completely unbreakable.
Yeah, I think in a way that Silva's quality makes my pick, and I had budget left to put him in there. But I actually think the Swansea game against Liverpool will be a very open game. I think the last time
4-1, wasn't it? Last time it was a great game.
And they had the bald guy, the ex-Liverpool bald guy playing centre mid for Swansea.
I'm sure that's how he'd like to be known.
That's how he should be known, and he was absolutely garbage that night at Anfield. In fact, I think Liverpool scored direct from a corner.
He scored. I remember Shelby scored for Swansea and then gave the ball away. Was that the previous fixture? I probably shouldn't say I remember and then just blatantly hedge my bet.
I don't remember, but I think, but I think it did happen, and actually I also think that he's had a shocker almost every time he's played against Liverpool.
I love John Joe Shelby, and this is something that we've talked about for years. I said the day that he signed for Swansea for $5 million, I said that's an absolute steal. This guy's 21. He's got a must of 50 plus top flight appearances, which is really good going at a club like Liverpool.
Yeah. But to be honest, playing alongside and in his peak Steven Gerrard, I could have had 50 appearances for Liverpool and probably achieved the same as he did.
All right, I think that he's kept out some excellent players from that Liverpool team, and I just really rate Shelby. Goal threat, box to box, and he's got a bit of dig about him too.
Just not enough to actually have him in a lineup.
Oh no, it wasn't great value. It wasn't great value.
I don't like him that
but
much.
I love him as a player, and I'll definitely have him picked in some of my teams. So we've both gone with Sanchez up front, as discussed. I've gone with Gabby Agbonlahor for Villa. Now, this is a real gamble, because Agbonlahor, if I recall correctly, you've actually gone with Agbonlahor in DraftKings as your flex pick.
Yep.
Now, my thing with Agbonlahor is he's a low average points per game scorer. Look at that, 5.9. That is not good.
He's better than that, isn't he?
I think so.
He's better than that.
I'm gambling on one thing and one thing only, and that is that they're playing Sunderland. Sunderland with a cumbersome back four, leave gaps in behind. They might not. That's my only concern. Sunderland might have learned from their mistakes and play a very deep back four.
Tugboat Thomas and the Earthquake, John O'Shea and Wes Brown.
I know. My goodness.
And I don't think Benteke will play this weekend. I think he is injured now. So I think Agbonlahor will play. He will start.
He'll be the focal point,
and they will be looking to get the ball over the top. Every possible time. I think it's a huge value play.
That's it. So that's the exact thought process that I've gone through, and you've gone with the same one.
With the exact same.
So much so in fact that I've gone with Agbonlahor in both my teams, which is pretty rare.
I wonder if that means he'll be highly he'll be picked by a lot of people this week, sort of percentage wise. You'd think a guy like that under the radar, but he might be the a sort of talking horse this week. I think you might see him in quite a few lineups.
It's kind of funny though, because Sunderland obviously shit 9 at Southampton around the turn of the year, and since then they've actually locked it down quite well. They actually don't concede that many goals. There's this sort of misconception with Gus Poyet teams that they're full of flair and they're a bit gung ho. I actually think the opposite is true. I think they're just painful to watch.
I think they'd get the game stopped. I think there's a few teams in the English Premier League, the greatest league in the world, that would get the game stopped, and they're certainly one of them. Yeah,
absolutely. So just comparing our DraftKings picks here. So we've discussed Hart, Robertson. You've gone with Pab Zab for Manchester City as your second player, purely a value play?
I actually had someone else in there that I can't remember, who I then discovered was injured, and was amazed to find that I could afford to stick Zabaleta, and delighted. It's a bit like occasionally my philosophy would be try and pick the best guy on the board at all times, and he was there, he was available, and I feel he was the best player, certainly at 4,600.
I love it. Well, my only curveball for I've got a couple actually in DraftKings. I've gone with 2 West Ham players. As discussed, we expect West Ham to lose against Arsenal. I've gone with Adrian, the goalkeeper, primarily because although I expect West Ham to lose, I expect it to be narrow, and that gives Adrian a lot of opportunities to score some points with shot stopping. He's in a very, very good form at the moment. I think he's an excellent keeper. Best of all, look at that price.
Oh, so cheap.
3,500 for a keeper of his quality and his form. Couldn't say no to that. And I've also gone with Aaron Creswell because West Ham's MO is to get the ball forward, is to pick out the big guy, who will probably be Carlton Cole this weekend. Well, with no Valencia, no Carroll, it has to be someone. They do like a big unit up front,
and he's a real enemy of social media, Carlton Cole, as we know as well.
He sure is.
£20,000 fine this week for retorting
for
an opposition fan.
For mistweeting. Although,
could you imagine what your annual fine would be?
What mine would be? I shudder to think. I absolutely shudder to think. But then I'm an Aberdeen fan, so there's plenty to complain about.
Yeah.
So Aaron Creswell, I think, will gather points with assists. There's the outside possibility of it being a low-scoring game as well. And my other curveball that I haven't discussed is Victor Moses. Look at this guy's FPPG, 10.8.
I've actually got lineup envy watching that.
Yeah.
Where's that come from?
Yeah.
How's he been so mispriced?
It's kind of peculiar, isn't it? Because you can get, for only about 20% more, I'm getting Victor Moses ahead of Seb Larsson, and I still had $200 in the bank. Moses is a guy. He's sort of a confusing player because he's an attacker. He's a striker, but he's playing. You know, he's rated as a midfielder. I just think that's gold.
I mean, he definitely is. I mean, to be honest, I'm not saying he pulled up trees at Chelsea when he was there, but you know, he was a kind of Daniel Sturridge type.
Yep.
Loads of pace, a trick, loves to shoot. I think you might have won a watch there, Christy.
Well, he's a frustrating player because, you know, 3 times for 4, it's not going to come off and the attack breaks down. But he can score, he can create, and those are the attributes you're looking for from your midfielders. If you can eke out some points by selecting midfielders who play as forwards, then you're onto a winner. I say I'm onto a winner. There's every chance this might be a disaster.
But you're probably not.
Probably not. Okay, I think it's probably time to wrap this up because we've been wittering on for long enough. Hopefully you've enjoyed this, and as always, you know, we're looking for topics for discussion. If there's something that you want to discuss with us, we're on Twitter. Just click the links on the screen there if you're watching. If you're not watching, what are we at? Daily Fantasy Lobby?
Daily Fantasy Lobby.
Wonderful. Personally, I'm on Twitter at Casey151.
At SPL Punter.
And as always, we're happy to chat, come up with suggestions, and just talk it through. We're going on this journey together. You know, this website is new. Really want you to check out dailyfantasylobby.com. Check out the Super Lobby. It's your one-click way to enter competitions while looking at the margins, you know, the money that is being taken out of the prize pool by the operators. If you can get in low margin events, then you're making some serious value. We're looking at the overlay. That's extra free money that's in these prize pools. So check out our Super Lobby at dailyfantasylobby.com and let us know what you think. Thanks very much, David.
Thanks, Christy.
And we'll catch up with you soon.